The International Monetary Fund's role in supporting developing economies is coming more sharply into focus as it negotiates bailout deals with Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Analysts believe Islamabad, with more than $121 billion in external debt, is heading in the same direction as Colombo. Ishan Garg takes a look at what the two countries are doing to unlock that crucial funding and the impact it can have on their economies.
From staples like potatoes and onions to fuel and the cost of doing business, all of it has become unaffordable for the average Pakistani in the past 2 years, and it could worsen still. Pakistan's government recently hiked taxes to unlock a $1.2 billion tranche from the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF. The country needs it to rebuild its economy that's been ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic and the disastrous floods last year. Some analysts say the tax hikes could push inflation to 40% this year, at a time when prices are already at their highest in half a century. And while many politicians blame the IMF, experts believe they should point fingers at decades of economic mismanagement.
And with every new program, with every new austerity measures, with every new budget, you don't see real progress because the overall situation is not improving. It's muddling through, mainly.
Still, critics of the IMF say the global lenders' recommendation of hiking taxes, cutting fuel and business subsidies are too harsh. They are echoing long-standing concerns that IMF's policies often ignore the impact on the poorest.
This is the prevalent criticism of IMF here in Pakistan, that IMF programs deteriorate the economy, do not take enough care of the poor. But I don't think this is a fair criticism at this point, to some extent. But of course, every program, every change that will be implemented will not lead to a prosperous future in the short term. So there will be hardships.
In its defense, IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva had at the recent Munich Security Conference acknowledged the problems facing Pakistan, noting how a third of the population had been affected by devastating floods. She says what the country needs to do is raise tax revenues on those who can contribute and reduce subsidies for those who don't need them. Following those comments, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif announced that his coalition will be, quote, voluntarily surrendering pays, perks and privileges, which according to him will save the exchequer $765 million a year. Sales taxes have also been raised on non-essential items including business class air travel and luxury imports. But austerity alone may not be enough to pull the country through. With just about $3 billion in foreign exchange reserves, Pakistan's hardships could be worsening soon. Cargo has been stuck at the Karachi's ports for weeks now because the country simply doesn't have enough money to cover imports. And as shortages of essential supplies loom large, some say Pakistan, like its regional neighbour Sri Lanka, should consider the nuclear option, defaulting on its loans.
Pakistan's policymakers have to take a call whether it is worthwhile for them to pay foreign creditors at the expense of its own poor, suffering population, right? Sri Lanka made that call in April last year and decided to default on its debt to preserve its precious foreign reserves for food and medicines and all of that.
Sri Lanka too has had to make a sharp U-turn from its welfare measures to secure a bailout package from the IMF. It's raised taxes on food items, electricity and a variety of goods and services. Analysts say the IMF's demands, though harsh, ensured long-term stability. And its funding can open doors to aid from other lenders.
Nobody else is going to come in until the IMF comes, provides its own stamp of approval on the overall macroeconomic framework.
But long delays in the IMF funding process can mean prolonged pain for citizens of Sri Lanka and Pakistan.
And that is why debt is likely to be high on the agenda when G20 leaders meet here in New Delhi. Economists expect them to come up with alternative funding solutions, or even to exert pressure on large lenders like China to waive some of its loans off to support struggling economies like Sri Lanka and Pakistan.
Countries will still have to make structural changes to battle corruption and crony capitalism though. Economists say without it, any funding may only be a band-aid solution. Ishan, Garg, CNA, New Delhi.